Welcome to the CSFL post-game show for week 3. And what a week it was. An absolute thriller. Welcome to the show. This is the Canadian Simulation Football League. I am your host, Commissioner JD. And right here with me, I got Rhinos owner. And we are going to break down week 3 for you. Thank you so much for making the time to be here, Rhinos.
Always. I'm only here so I don't get fined.
All right. So let's get right into it. We'll jump right into the scene. Boom, there it is on the screen. We got the Blue Jays versus the Rhinos. And look at this game. 31-29, 7 points apiece in the fourth quarter, but the Rhinos were able to get just past them, just enough, able to turn the ball over twice. Huge turnover by Keel McDowell late in the game, and a huge turnover by Roman Bell early in the game. Obviously, the Rhinos owner here is excited about this game, and we're going to let him have his piece. But looks like to me the Blue Jays were trying to climb back in the second half, scoring 13 points in the second quarter. But you held them in their first quarter to 9 points in 3 field goals. So you got a minute or two. Break down the Blue Jays and Rhinos game for me.
All right, well, as you can see, I have a perma smile because I love it. I loved every minute of the game. I was really pushing for the Rhinos because, we deserved this win and we got it. So the way I saw the game play out was I thought both teams stacked it up, man. They had over together combined 400 plus yards for both teams. And I just feel on paper the Jays were a little bit better, but as the individual players, the Rhinos, we got it done. And, I can't be any prouder than that for those guys. There's 3 offensive red zone touchdowns, and it was all over back and forth. Both teams, it was just like neck and neck for a while. And we came out with the victory. It was a team effort for the Rhinos, though. It was a team effort, how you look at it, up and down the board. Horton was 137.5 QBR, 201 yards. Not the greatest day, but it was all about Marshall. Mark Marshall. I'm calling him Mark the Workhorse Marshall because that's what he did. He had 19 attempts, 3 touchdowns. He was just all over the place and no fumbles, which is a big one. So 122 yards after first hit against the Jays. So it means the Jays, they're not tackling very well. I don't know what's going on, but the defense was kind of weak on certain sides. And, you give Marshall 122 yards after the first hit. What do you think is going to happen? The Gators owner has yet to comment on whether Marshall should be with the best running backs in the league because he seemed to be hating on Marshall. I don't know why, but,
right.
This game will make him different. That's the way I thought, keep going.
No, I was going to say, let me stop you there before you get too much. Honestly, the Rhinos played phenomenal, and you actually brought up a lot of key points. And before we switch to the next game, what happened to those Blue Jays and why were the Blue Jays so unsuccessful? The big story of the week is not just the Rhinos winning, but why didn't the Blue Jays win this game? What did they do wrong besides obviously turning the ball over twice?
Well, I can give you a few things they did wrong. One is that you have giveaways in a game, you're most likely going to lose because You're not securing the ball. Higgins, 48 rushing yards. That's it? On 14 attempts, that's not going to get anything done. 3 yards average is a bad game for Higgins. Okay? Yeah. So if he's not running the ball, what else are you going to do? You're going to pass. But they were so bad in the run, they had to put Coyle, the wide receiver, in to run the ball, and he had more yards, almost as much yards as Higgins. That's how bad the running game was for the Jays. So that right there, boom's not good. But Coyle did have a good game. He had 7 receptions, 113 yards, 16 yards average. But, if you're just going to rely on 1 or 2 guys, it's not going to get it done. The middle linebackers, they were playing, but they have to be a unit. Like the Rhinos were a unit, not one player had all the shine. Everybody had their fill. So, I just think all around Dorsey, he had a moderate game. He had over 300 yards, but he had 2 picks. You can't give anything to the Rhinos, and they did.
You're absolutely right. And on that note, we're going to switch to the next game, and the Blue Jays and Rhinos on the primetime game. Absolutely. Looking forward to seeing them play.
Rhinos. All I can say is we're better than the Jays. So
in week 4, absolutely. Hey, let's move on to Saturday's first game, and that was the Piranhas versus the Dragons. And oh my lord, did the Piranhas put on a thumping onto these Dragons? Quote unquote, oof, was the statement released by the Dragons owner, because it was quite that type of a game. 0 points in the first quarter, 0 points in the third quarter, and they only scored 14 points while the Piranhas laid down 41 on them. And late in the fourth quarter, when they had a chance to kneel it, they kept running the ball and getting the ball in the end zone, even though they had the ability to kneel it. Do you think this is because the Piranhas have a bad taste in their mouth losing the championship game to the Dragons? Like, what happened in this ball game, in your opinion, to the Dragons? Because obviously we know the Piranhas are so successful in what they do, but what happened to the Dragons, Rhinos?
Well, the Dragons, let's see. Platt, he had a good game. He had 200 yards in the air, 2 touchdowns, but again, 2 interceptions. 12 for 25.
Yeah.
So, he was struggling. He was trying to get the ball out to everybody like usual, but it wasn't happening. The Piranhas are just supercharged. Barber, again, bad running game for the running backs. 36 yards on 7 attempts. Might be the worst average this whole week for running backs. That's brutal.
Yeah.
That's brutal. Pleasant, 4 receptions for only 90 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, Pill, Pop, and Perkins usually gets it done. But, 70 yards, 1 touchdown. On the defensive side, Hanks with 5 tackles is okay. You rarely see that. The defensive tackle, Stewart, he had 5 tackles too. So they were pushing on the Piranhas, but I don't know. The Dragons look like they're running out of gas, before the season even starts. Only 200 total yards offense. I mean, I think if Platt can get back on the horse and get those linemen moving the line so Barber can get the ball moving, I definitely think it's just an easy recipe for a little bit more success. I don't know what they called. I didn't see it exactly. But whatever offensive style they called, I would definitely check it out. See if you're utilizing the players that get you those dubs.
They're definitely using the same offensive playbook that they brought them to the championship game. But yes, everyone, when they play the Dragons, since they won the championship game, is bringing their A game every time they play these champs, because they kind of want to match up to the champs and see how good they are. But to add to your point,
14-41,
40.
That's a thumping.
40 points as a team total rushing on the ground for the Dragons, 40 yards. So that is just, again, like you said, a recipe for disaster. And then also turning the ball over twice, and then Otto Graham, Alonzo has just been amazing. He is 13.
Yeah, great QBR.
He's 13-0 on the season in 3 games. So that just says a lot right there. So now let's move on to the next game. We'll move right into the next game, and in my opinion, was the game of the week. It was the most entertaining game you could possibly watch. These games don't get much better than this, and that's the Gators versus the Bears. The Gators scoring 18 points in the fourth quarter, and the Bears scoring 14 points in the fourth quarter. But that first quarter for the Bears, where they were shut out and they were not able to come back in time, 10 seconds left on the clock when they potentially won the ball game, and the Gators come back with 10 seconds on the clock, and Eric Reeves plays for a Hail Mary and gets it. So what happened in the Gators-Bears game? Do you think the Gators got lucky? But honestly, they were dominating for most of the game, and then they kind of let off at the end because the Gators didn't score in the third quarter as well. So they kind of let off a little bit and ran the ball and then allowed the Bears to come back into it. So what do you think about that? What's your takeaway from this thriller of a game?
Yeah, that game is a definite heartbreaker. I mean, I feel for the Bears. I mean, they're a great team, but that was a tough one. And I'd give it up for Ryan the Villain Dillon. He came back with a vengeance. You know, the 10-year pro. You know, he had 119 yards on 5 receptions. Wait, is that no? That's a different stat. But he's gonna hang it up soon though. I mean, 10-year pro. You got to get the most out of Ryan the Villain Dillon now. But he'll be good for the rest of the season. But with the yards he was racking up and the way he played, I like the way that they were moving the ball with him. Bill Superman Morris is what I'm calling him. It's just wow.
Yeah.
Wow. He's such a leader. He's such a good, quarterback. He's solid. 16 for 24, 338 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception.
Yeah.
The interception was, I think, the Gators deserved that. They snagged that one. But, by the end of the fourth, the Bears had the Gators balls on a platter. That's it. They were ready to close the nail on the coffin. The MVP of the game, I think, was that late touchdown, and it was just smooth move, Bill Morris. I'll tell you, he's got it. But that's what I think definitely pushed the Bears over the Gators.
I agree.
Right near the fourth, but then the last, then Reeves, like how do you stop when they do that? I mean, the Gators had all overtime of possession, all Gators. Third down conversions, all Gators. 422 total offense. You know what I'm saying? They were playing at a high level, and right when the Bears almost had them, the Gators snatch it right back. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, the Gators played better in almost every aspect of the game and were dominating in the game, but the Bears don't have many weaknesses. They are phenomenal on defense. They're great at the passing game, but the one weakness they do have is the running game. Only 52 yards by William Hillard on 10 attempts. Wasn't able to get it done and move it for these Bears, which kind of put it on the shoulders of Bill Morris, and he actually came through, to be honest with you, and his defense let him down with 10 seconds left on the clock. But man, if you're going to watch these games or didn't watch them, make sure you watch this one. That's for sure.
Yeah, this one was it was just a breaking coverage, man. That's what I think. I mean, you can't let a guy streak. It's just like a Hail Mary. Like, what defense were they really doing? I don't know. Was it like an umbrella, like way far back? Like, what did they do, man? Or maybe they played up too close, got burned.
Well, when you watch that play, it was the rookie of the Gators that got it in the fourth slot there. So the fourth position, but he was in the slot. But let's move on to the Werewolves and Cobras, and then we got the Wildcats and Vipers for the last two. But the Werewolves and Cobras, 2 games we get this weekend that go to overtime, plus the thriller in the Bears cave. So we had quite the thrilling of a weekend. Another overtime game here in week 3, and we got 2 of them this weekend, and it was the Werewolves versus the Cobras. Went to overtime. What a phenomenal performance by the Cobras running back Charles Hackett had a phenomenal day. Absolute highlight reel runs. Was dominating for most of the game, but the Werewolves climbed and scratched and bit and clawed their way in the fourth quarter, scoring 17 points and clawing their way back in the fourth quarter to tie the game up. And then in overtime, the worst part is that the Cobras won the toss, got the ball first and had to punt it, and went 3-0, and then they watched the Werewolves go all the way down there with their dominant running game with the momentum and settle for a game-winning field goal. So what do you think about this Cobra squad going 0-3 and this brand new Werewolves team getting their second win of their early franchise history?
I'll tell you this. This is the one game I didn't get to see very much of. But from what I do see, it was just a shootout, and I still think Barnett had a great game because they had over 800 yards total combined for both sides. So usually when you see high numbers like that, both teams, they were gunning. So I think they
Right.
both had a good offensive day because Barnett still had 100 plus, QBR rating, 307 yards.
Right.
So that's productive day. I like the way Barnett plays. I like his style. I like the movement they have on the offensive side. But for the Cobras, I mean, I can't even begin. Like I haven't even began to tell you what their issues could be. I don't know if it's on the offense or the defense because any given week it's not like a consistent thing where it's offense. You can tell every week they're gonna check in, or defense. It's like you get the Cobras on whatever week it is. You never know. So until I
Yeah.
until I examine this game a little closer, I don't really know what's wrong with the Cobras. But I know the Werewolves are dope. I know they got a dope squad, good
Yeah.
young players,
Yeah.
and I think the Cobras are gonna really have to step into this draft and really do some damage because Drennan's getting old, and that's gonna
Yeah.
be somebody they're gonna need to replace.
Yeah, the Cobras looked again great on offense. Today or the game in week 3, Charles Hackett, again the running back, had 155 yards, 2 touchdowns, 11-yard average, 14 attempts, and he honestly has not been playing that well, in my opinion. So this game he played really well, and they finally were looking like they're going to win this ball game early. It definitely felt like the Cobras had the momentum for the majority of the ball game, and then the Werewolves clawed their way back against their strong defense. Cobras, very similar build to the Bears, in my opinion. So the Bears and the Cobras have a very similar thing going on where they're great on their passing game. They got a dominant defense. They also got another interception. Ron Tate got his second of the year in 3 games now. But they can't run the ball. So Charles Hackett had a phenomenal week this week. Again, 150 yards, but was it enough? And then their defense lets them down. So it's like it's tough slugging for the Cobras, but the Werewolves.
The Cobras, they've been playing good. I mean, their wide receivers, Drennan and Williams, both had over 100 receiving yards.
Yeah, so that's the defense.
They're moving the ball.
The defense let
They're
them
moving the
down
ball, but
in the fourth quarter, and they lost the momentum. And Darius Burke, when he gets going, he goes berserk.
he goes like the Energizer Bunny.
So the Werewolves and Cobras game, that's an absolute thriller. Let's move on to the last and final game. We're at 18 minutes, so let's see if we can get this done in under 25 at least. It is Wildcats versus the Vipers. Vipers coming in with a lot of momentum after their win against the Blue Jays in week 2, and then they come in here and they have to face the 2-0 Wildcats. The Wildcats did everything they could. If you look at the game and you watch the game, it's unbelievable how mirror imaging the scoreboard was. So the Wildcats and Vipers in the first quarter scored 7. The Wildcats and the Vipers in the second quarter scored 10 apiece. Then 7 apiece, 14 apiece. Every quarter they scored the exact same amount of points. So it was literally one of those games where they just said, "Hey, we're not gonna block. We're not gonna put. It's a boxing fight, and I don't care if you punch me in the face. And we're just gonna go blow for blow, punch for punch until one of us falls over." And we went to overtime, and the final blow was Troy Jackson on the bomb. Right off the bat, like we were talking about earlier, Jeannie Ingram didn't waste no time, and he said, "You know what? I'm going for it right now," and he took the strike, and they got into field goal range in overtime, and they kicked a field goal on first down. So what happened? And break down the Wildcats and Vipers game for me there, Rhinos.
Yeah, that's all they needed, and that was a really smart, savvy move for the Wildcats because the kickers money from anywhere on the field. Get it close enough, you're good. And they picked the right time for that. But a key moment for me in that game was the fourth quarter, 28 seconds left. all bright. The future is still all bright for him, and the Vipers hits his star rookie wide receiver, Johnny. Here comes Johnny Jones for the late touchdown, which sends the game into overtime. That was huge, huge. I jumped out of my seat. Great play. Another key moment was when Ingram throws on that absolute bomb right in the bucket. That was a beautiful throw to Troy, your boy, Jackson, and he comes down with it to get the Cats within the field goal range and, of course, to kick the money, and it was all good after that. But both teams lit it up, almost 900 yards combined. The Wildcats struggled a bit on the ground with only 79 rush yards on the day, but the Vipers had 140 on the ground, which I think is the best way to go for that team when they're running the ball and Phil Clemens is eating. So, if they do that, they're good. But the Wildcats go 7 for 7 in the third down conversions, which goes a long way when it comes to field position in the late quarters. So, the Cats had the most time of possession, 12-16, which shows they had a lot of control during this game. And that's important when you want to move the ball and have an effective offense. The Cats they were tested all season, but, I think they have what it takes to get all the way into a deep run this season. So I think definitely if you put it together, I think the Vipers, they ran a Tampa, the Tampa offense, and I wouldn't necessarily have done that. I don't think if they realized that we're in Madden 09. So, I think the Tampa Bay offense that had John Gruden, that kind of style of offense. And we all know that, he ran a lot of the formations, the sweeps, the horizontal stretches and stuff like that. With Phil Clemens, you don't really need to have him wide. I would say have him going north-south. But, I believe that they had a good game. They just couldn't, they couldn't close that gap when they needed it. But kudos to the Vipers, man. I feel bad for them.
Absolutely, man. I think the Vipers did absolutely everything perfect, and the only reason the Wildcats won is because they won the overtime toss, because they were on the road and they were the away team, and they got to decide the overtime toss, or at least got to pick it, and they won it. Edgar Plummer.
Can I say something real quick?
Go ahead.
I talked to the Vipers, and they sounded really optimistic. They still sounded like they kind of knew they missed a spot here or there that could have got them the win. So, again, I just want to shout out the Vipers. Good game, good try, but I mean the Wildcats, they're just really on fire right now.
You're absolutely right, man. And the Vipers are great, under great ownership there with the owner there, and he's doing everything he can to get this offense rolling. He's a very defensive guy. Even his experience playing as a player, he was a defensive player. So I know they run the defense really, really well. So he's trying to turn the boat now with this offense rolling. 3 catches, 143 yards for 2 touchdowns. Edgar Plummer was definitely their guy when they needed him the most. They do really well with that Tampa Bay offense. Actually, I think it was a great decision to call, necessarily, not necessarily for my team in particular, but for their team. I think it worked perfectly. They went blow for blow with one of the best teams, if not the second best team in the league right now. And I think that the Vipers, played flawlessly. And if the Wildcats would have made one mistake, they would have lost. But guess what? They didn't. So that wraps up that wraps it up. We didn't really talk much about the Wildcats, but the Wildcats are 3-0. Not too much to say about that. But hey, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. Again,
Week 4 is looking good.
Week 4 is looking real good. So we'll. Thanks for watching the whole show, and we'll see you next week for the Week 4 post-game show. Thanks again.